I have some questions.
Yes.
So this doesn't provide any real-time tracking data, that's correct?
This provides a real-time snapshot of all the cell phone data for a geographic location, city block or a certain defined area.
Okay, and then that can be requested in the future in the case of a trial, you said.
Yes.
Where is this data being stored? Is APD storing this data, or is it the vendor that's managing that?
Yeah, so it comes to the police department. It's in a data set that is otherwise indiscernible by the police department. If you could imagine a 14-digit serial number, or not serial number, but some sort of an IMEI or something like that, that's associated with a cell phone service specific to a vehicle, or rather, I'm sorry, a cell phone. Think of it in terms of how corporations use it for marketing. If they know that 500 cell phones in the city of Aurora are Googling a certain brand of tennis shoe, that they know to maybe flood that area with marketing campaigns for that type of shoe. They know that based on anonymous data that's not tied to any individual person. In a similar fashion, we would have that data, that data stays with us, but it means nothing to us until or unless we write a search warrant, obtain a search warrant through judicial process, and then send that secondary search warrant off to a cell phone carrier and ask for them to give us an interpretation of that data. We don't have the ability to do that.
Okay, so that's where you get the identifying information. And then we could issue a search warrant. Is it also possible for, say, a federal agency to issue a subpoena or a warrant of some case and get this data on our residents?
Based on the information that we obtain, they would have to go through the same judicial process that we would have to go through. It's not a free market. It's not a free market system.
Mm-hmm.
No one can obtain this information without judicial process.
And if say the federal government were trying to get this data, would they be able to do that without this equipment?
I don't know. I don't know how the federal government does their investigations, and I don't know how that differs from how we intend to use this equipment, but I suspect they have their own equipment, or perhaps they have something that's not dissimilar from this, but I couldn't speak to what a federal law enforcement agency would do.
Okay, thank you.
This provides a real-time snapshot of all the cell phone data for a geographic location.
First item on the agenda.
Item 25-0378, a resolution authorizing the Director of Purchasing to enter into a purchase agreement with 5A Group for the procedure of a drive test scanner for the Aurora Police Department in a total amount not to exceed $170,000.
Commander, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Committee. Commander Bill Rowley, I'm the Commander in charge of Investigative Services Division. I'm bringing before you our request for authorization to purchase a drive test scanner. We brought this to the Finance Committee and Committee of the Whole in the spring, and under the direction of the Committee of the Whole, we returned this item so that we could do a formal bid process. Initially, this item and this vendor was chosen based on a sole source application, but for sake of further transparency, we returned that for a formal bid, which we did. This item, which I can describe briefly, through the formal bid process, 5A Group was selected as the most qualified, lowest bid for this process amongst the other vendor applicants, which included LexisNexis. And just if I can give you a brief summary of what a drive test scanner is for the purposes of a police department. As you see through your memo, with the modernization of a lot of policing investigative tactics and techniques, mobile cellular data, as well as other digital data, is long become the standard for a lot of our evidence collection and a lot of our real-time location of missing persons, wanted fugitives, and the like. One of the items that we can use to assist with this investigation is a drive test scanner, which in layman's terms is a piece of equipment that can map out the cellular network in our area. It can help us determine with greater clarity the location of a person or absence of a person at a crime scene For example, I used this before. If the police show up to a scene where someone's been shot and it's your classic whodunit, we can analyze cellular data from that area, and through a strict legal process, we can take that data, write a search warrant for that data, and obtain real-time usable information from cellular phone companies, and use that to either develop further leads into the investigation of the crime, or if we have someone in mind that we are looking at as a possible suspect, we can use that information to refute their presence if we know that they were somewhere else or they were not in the area at the time of the committed crime. For instances involving things like missing endangered folks, if we have known cellular data, for instance, if a family member says, my grandfather with Alzheimer's disease is missing from an area, he might be out on foot walking around, here's his cell phone number. Under an emergency and exigent circumstance, we can obtain cell phone data from the cell phone company under that exigency, and we can use this drive test scanner to see if we can pinpoint where that person is based on their cell phone. Just to wrap this up, none of the stuff that we receive via a drive test scanner works on its own, so it's essentially ones and zeros that we receive back. We're not permitted to interpret that data until we receive through a legal process, and that would be a search warrant through a judge, to take that information and send it off to a cell phone company to get data that can be analyzed. We have another piece of software that we analyze that data from, but again, that data is useless to us until we receive other information from a cell phone carrier that lets us further process that data. Finally, it puts this data into easy to understand mapping formats for when we eventually go to court on a case, rather than try to spend hours explaining to a jury what all these numbers on a piece of paper mean. This data helps us put it in a mappable format so that a layperson can review the data and see it in an understandable and digestible way. It also creates duplicity in our court proceedings, so we'll collect data from one area, and this drive test scanner and the subsequent software that we already have can be used to validate as a two-pronged approach for evidence, which is sort of the industry standard. I'll give an example of when we seize what we believe to be drugs. We'll have a field test that will give us a determinate finding of whether or not that's a controlled substance, for example. Then we later send it to a lab for a secondary assessment. So we have two prongs in that case. For digital evidence, that same standard is required by the courts, and this would help us provide that second repeatable standard. Any questions?
Alderman Larson.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious, out of, so it looks like this is a $170,000 contract. Do we know approximately how much of that is the cost for the drive test scanner? I was just doing a little bit of research, and it looks like the model that 5/8 Group offers, it's not easy to find prices for like a new model, but a used one, it looked like it was running around $25,000. So 170 seems a little high. So I don't know how much of that is added services or training on top of the equipment.
Sure, and forgive my lack of clarity up in front of you today, but when I refer to the drive test scanner I'm bringing before you, what I'm actually referring to is an entire scope of work, which includes the hardware, training, the associated software that goes along with it, ongoing software updates for the 3-year period of the purchase agreement, and also court testimony assistance if needed from the vendor, and so that's packaged into a total scope of work beyond just a piece of equipment.
I guess a follow-up to that, if we were to move forward with this and we wanted to continue using this equipment, if there's software that goes along with it, do we expect there to be a comparable renewal cost, or would it be lower if we were to continue using it? Because if we don't keep up with the software licensing, it might become a brick.
That's great, and we also discussed that, which is why we didn't seek anything beyond a 3-year contract. Given the state of technology, advancements in technologies, it's reasonable to think that in 3 years there may be a version of this or something even more effective that's going to be out there. So rather than lock ourselves into, say, a 5-year contract for something, now during the 3 years that we have this under our purchase agreement, that includes all software updates that would be a portion to this piece of equipment and its surrounding software. But at the end of 3 years, leading up to the end of 3 years, our plan is to make a reassessment, and if this is still the best technology that's out there, then we would reconsider another 3-year contract. But again, going back to how technology works, our suspicion is that in 3 years there could be something that's much more effective, and we'd rather have the option to look into that versus being stuck with something that's archaic.
Alderman Barrow.
Chairman Masiacos, I have a question. Did you guys work with IT on this while you were looking for this technology?
We did. We had brief interactions with them on the onset about this because this piece of equipment will not touch a city network, and the subsequent software is air-gapped as a standalone system outside the network. Their interaction with this will be limited. We have a person who's certified in this and has been trained and has graduated as a court expert on this piece of equipment. So that person would be sort of the be-all, end-all in terms of maintenance and care of the product, and then going back to the vendor for any maintenance issues or any breakage or anything like that. So while IT was involved on the onset, their ongoing support would probably be minimal at best. Also, we did talk to other partners, Joliet being one that comes to mind immediately. They have this up and running, and they've used it, so we spent a lot of time talking to them to see about how that end result would look before we made a decision. Thank you. Pleasure.
Alderman Franco.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Bug. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Committee.
Thank you, Commander. Clerk, please.